have spent months here gearing up for the midterm elections in the U.S. Now there's another election to watch, one that raises big concerns about the future of the U.K. Its Prime Minister Liz Truss is resigning after just a month and a half in the job. This will make her time as PM the shortest in British history. She won her Conservative Party's leadership election just in early September. Ms. Truss assumed the premiership days before Queen Elizabeth II died. Her mandate included tackling a growing economic crisis, but she ended up making that crisis worse. An unexpected economic package sent the markets into a panic. Inflation hit a 40-year high, and energy prices have skyrocketed. A number of Britons say all this instability has them worried.
It's not very good for the country at all, and I think it's very difficult to see who's going to be the next leader. There's no obvious choice.
There's people in this country worrying about how to pay their fuel bills and buy food, and we haven't even got a Prime Minister now.
No.
So.
We'll get more into some of those concerns in a moment, but let's begin with the latest from Westminster. From our partners at Sky News, here's political correspondent Ali Fortescue.
Even Liz Truss's greatest critics will praise the political skill that led her all the way to Downing Street.
We shouldn't be daunted by the challenges we face. As strong as the storm may be, I know that the British people are stronger.
Catapulted to number 10 with a mandate from the membership to challenge the status quo. But a mini-budget just 2 weeks into the job set in motion Liz Truss's downfall. And lost another Tory leader the confidence of the party.
I think one of the potentially early missteps on the political side was to form an administration that was so heavily weighted to those that were on one side of the leadership contest and not to have reached out a bit more to the other side.
Liz Truss was politically engaged from a young age. Growing up in Glasgow and Leeds, she described her parents as left-wing. At Oxford University, she was even president of the Liberal Democrats.
There are two main problems with this amendment conference.
It was in her late 30s that the woman who would become Prime Minister began to rise through the Tory ranks. She carved out a position on the right of the party and became a grassroots favourite, despite her at times awkward public appearances.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
In Cabinet, she was seen by some as a troublemaker, determined to get her way. Some were surprised to see Boris Johnson promote her to Foreign Secretary. And when the search began to replace him, she made it onto the final ballot for the leadership by just 8 votes.
Mordaunt, 105. Sunak, 137. Truss, 113.
Her path then through the Tory membership was rarely in doubt.
Frankly, the idea of being stuck in a lift with Keir Starmer strikes me as extremely boring.
It was once she got the job, things began to unravel. Liz Truss's premiership veered off course. 2 days after becoming the Queen's 15th Prime Minister, she was confronted by a nation in mourning.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral.
When politics eventually did return, the new Prime Minister was on the back foot.
You're prepared to be unpopular, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Pushing ahead with a bold tax-cutting agenda blamed for market turmoil and political unrest.
I'm not going to cut the additional rate of tax today, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to abolish it altogether.
Then unceremoniously sacking her Chancellor and close friend Kwasi Kwarteng.
Here he is. Kwasi Kwarteng, should Liz Truss resign?
Her authority never recovered.
Resign.
I met the former Chancellor earlier today. I was incredibly sorry to lose him. He is a great friend, and he shares my vision to set this country on the path to growth.
The man she hoped could steady the economy and save her premiership tried.
Firstly, we will reverse almost all the tax measures announced in the growth plan 3 weeks ago that have not started parliamentary legislation.
But that left Liz Truss a Prime Minister without a purpose. As her Home Secretary resigned and chaotic scenes emerged from the Commons last night, it became clear she couldn't hold on. Liz Truss came into office at a time of global instability, but hers was a premiership characterised by infighting and U-turns. And she'll be remembered as the shortest-serving Prime Minister in British history. Ali Fortescue, Sky News, Westminster.
Now, Britain is not the only government with a parliamentary system, but for us Americans, it can seem a bit confusing. So, before we go any further, here's a quick explainer on how the UK picks a Prime Minister.
Order, order.
The United Kingdom is a parliamentary democracy. The government is voted into power by the people. The UK is also a constitutional monarchy. King Charles III has limited powers, and the royal family is also politically impartial. Parliament is divided into two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Each one makes laws, oversees the government, and debates big issues.
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter.
This agreement provides for a real Brexit, taking back control of our borders, laws, money, farming, fisheries and trade.
That's what Labour has to offer this country. Less protection for British citizens, less prosperous, less safe.
Britain normally chooses its prime minister through a general election. First, the existing prime minister dissolves parliament at a ceremonial visit to the king or queen. Now, in America, voters elect the president separately from other offices. But British voters don't directly choose the PM. They choose MPs, members of parliament, representing their districts in the House of Commons. Each district is called a constituency. If a party wins a majority of constituencies, that party's leader becomes the prime minister. An overall majority takes at least 326 seats. But what if the party with the most seats does not get a majority? Well, that's called a hung parliament, and then its new prime minister has three options: negotiate with other parties to build a majority coalition, try to govern anyway, or resign. Resignation usually happens after failing to negotiate a coalition. But remember, the party leader is also a member of parliament, so losing the top job usually means just going back to the House of Commons. And that's what happened with the last two PMs, Boris Johnson and Theresa May. So that's how the game is played. Let's see what the next play might be, with some analysis now from Hilary Fordwich, a global business analyst and royal commentator, and Ben Judah, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council Europe Center. Good to have you both with us. Ben, I wonder if I could start with you and what has happened to Liz Truss. Here is part of what she said just yesterday in response to the Labour Party's leader, Keir Starmer. Sir Keir Starmer, watch.
He's still here.
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter.
So, Ben Judah, if the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, currently still Prime Minister, is a fighter and not a quitter, why is she quitting?
Well, because she wasn't a fighter, and quite simply, she wasn't up to the job. Like, through the clips that you just played of her career, I was left thinking that to call her robotic isn't even the right word. In fact, there are many robots or AIs that are better at delivering public speaking than she was. It was a delusion that crept over the Conservative Party membership, a sort of ageing selectorate of mostly sort of wealthy, southern, insulated members, that this person could deliver them the dreams that they see in Brexit, which have never been able to be delivered for them. And the collision of that against reality was always going to be a disaster. It's, in fact, extraordinary that she lasted as many days as she did after the catastrophe of the so-called mini-budget.
Hilary, there was a moment with Charles Walker, who is a Conservative member of Parliament, speaking to BBC News today, and he just could not contain his disgust over the situation, or frankly his contempt for not only Liz Truss, but the people who put her in the premiership. Here is part of what he said today.
I really shouldn't say this, but I hope all those people that put Liz Truss in number 10, I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it for the ministerial red box. I hope it was worth it to sit round the cabinet table, because the damage they have done to our party is extraordinary.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult to convey. You look just furious about this.
I am. I've had enough. I've had enough of talentless people putting their tick in the right box, not because it's in the national interest, but because it's in their own personal interest.
Hillary, speak to that clip. The Conservative Party has been running through prime ministers rather rapidly in the last few years, and members like him seem to have had more than enough of it.
Well, Joshua, yes, and I think that he speaks for many in the British public as well. Remember, these politicians, while they're busy politicking, what they're not doing is addressing the situation in the UK with the dreadful crisis that's there in terms of the economic crisis. There's the cost of living crisis, and the energy projections for this winter are absolutely ghastly. So while they're busy with their own egos and their own politicking, what they're not doing is running the country, which is what they should be doing. So his disgust is really very prevalent throughout the UK at the moment.
Hillary, may I stick with you for just a second in terms of what's going on with the British people? The more I learn about the economic situation in the UK, the more I feel for folks there, because we're dealing with our own economic issues here in the United States, but it's very different in Great Britain right now. I mean, if you just look at inflation, it's at a 40-year high. Inflation for food prices is 14.6%, transportation 11%, household prices about 11% as well. There is an immense economic nightmare, Hillary, that I think a lot of British people are facing without a lot of clarity on how they're going to deal with it.
Oh, yes, Joshua, you're absolutely right. And if you add on to that, I don't think many of them are going to be leaving the UK to travel anywhere to get away from it all. Why? Because the pound is only 1.12 against the dollar. So the pound is so weak, people can't travel. Remember, there were a lot of wind farms built, and of course, the wind didn't blow. Also, there hasn't been any construction or permits for more of the North Sea oil, and fracking was cut to pieces. So while China's building 80 new coal plants every year, the race for net zero, where the UK is less than 1% of the global emissions output, really has also devastated the country and really damaged any chances of fuel for this winter.
So, Ben, what does the path forward look like? There was a poll asking who people would like to see take over if Liz Truss resigned. This was taken in the days before her actual resignation. 32% of Conservative Party members who responded to the poll said they wanted Boris Johnson. Wasn't he just kicked out of his job over a corruption scandal, over a do as I say, not as I do scandal that came to be known as Partygate? I mean, this guy oversaw COVID restrictions in the UK and then got caught connected to parties that violated their very own restrictions. And party leaders said, you have dishonored us. Get out of here and go back to being a backbencher. So how does Boris Johnson come back?
Well, the only way this can be explained to people watching in the United States is it's a little bit like you've got a sinking ship and the crew has just thrown over a sequence of captains and is now fighting over the controls, and possibly half of the crew is inebriated, is completely drunk and has no idea what can be done in order to steady the ship. The idea that Boris Johnson can do anything apart from lead the Labour Party to even greater heights in the opinion polls. The Labour Party is currently polling at 54% and the Conservative Party at 20% of the vote is completely farcical, the kind of thing that you would think if you had drunk 2 bottles of rum on a sinking ship.
Ben Judah, let me stick with you for just a moment in terms of the way that this is happening. We are going to have 3 different prime ministers this year who were elected under 3 different sets of circumstances. You've got Boris Johnson, who was elected in a regular election and actually grew the majority of the Conservative Party in Parliament. Then you have Liz Truss, who was chosen under a different process. And now whoever else is going to be coming up, chosen under a kind of similar but way faster process. I hate to sound like a cynical, nervous American, but the phrase constitutional crisis gets thrown around here all the time. How does the UK not have stricter rules about what to do if something happens to the Prime Minister?
Well, these are the kind of centuries-old traditions of Parliament. So I don't think this is a constitutional crisis. In some ways, this is the British system ejecting prime ministers that aren't good enough for the job. You know, one of the things that we can be happy about in the UK is that our main right-wing party doesn't look like it's turning into a personality cult in thrall to one rather bizarre billionaire with far-right leanings and tendencies.
Hillary, with regard to where this goes from here, there are some rules that were laid out by the 1922 committee, which is sort of the committee of the backbenchers in the House of Commons. They're going to have nominations of candidates. They need at least 100 nominations from other MPs by Monday. Tory members, conservatives, Tories, will vote between Tuesday and Friday, and we expect to learn by Friday at 11 a.m. UK time who the next prime minister will be. Before I got to let y'all go, Hillary, what is the good money in terms of who has or who might throw their hat in the ring for the job now?
Well, Rishi Sunak was at the top of the sort of betting that they have in the UK in terms of likelihood until it was understood that Boris Johnson cut his vacation or holiday in the Dominican Republic short and was heading back to the UK. So Rishi Sunak was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, that is equivalent to a Secretary of Treasury in the US. So obviously, at this time, one thing is for certain, this is not a time for a novice. Whoever will be elected will be somebody who has obviously had experience in something that has never been experienced before, which is a devastating situation. So it's got to be somebody with government experience, which is why Rishi Sunak was right up there. He, of course, though, also has his own scandal issues. Boris Johnson obviously is infamous, as you mentioned earlier, Joshua, with regard to Partygate, but also Rishi Sunak had the same sort of issues going on. So he isn't clear of any scandal either. The other third candidate is Penny Mordaunt. She was in charge of defense, and she's actually from Portsmouth, a very much of a naval town. The problem is she doesn't have a lot of economic experience. That will be the weakness for her. So it's really going to be between the three of those: Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, and former Defense Secretary Penny Mordaunt.
Last 10 seconds, Ben Judah, any other names we should keep an eye out for, or are those the main contenders?
I think those are the main contenders there. I don't think that, as many people have speculated, the current Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, will be stepping in to unify the party. I think we're going to see these characters squabbling over the controls as the ship sails into ever more dangerous waters.
As if we didn't have enough electoral politics to watch now, but this one is definitely consequential, and it will be very interesting to see who prevails come the end of next week. Hillary Fordwich, Ben Judah, appreciate you both talking this through with us tonight. Thank you both very much. Still to come this evening, keeping kids healthy. Parents have more than COVID and flu to worry about this winter. Dr. John Torres joins us with more on the respiratory disease RSV. We're glad you're with us for Now Tonight from NBC News. So flu season is beginning, but we're also seeing an alarming rise in children getting a particular respiratory disease. It's called RSV, respiratory syncytial virus. Pediatric doctors in 5 states are saying new cases are making them run short on hospital beds. In adults, RSV usually causes mild symptoms, kind of like a seasonal cold, but it can lead to serious complications for kids younger than 1, like pneumonia or bronchiolitis. Bronchiolitis is kind of like bronchitis, but it affects smaller vessels in your lungs. One children's hospital in Connecticut says it's using temporary units to manage the surge. One doctor says they're considering asking the National Guard for more help. Children's RSV may get harder to manage, but meanwhile, COVID is getting a bit easier. The CDC just signed off on the Novavax booster vaccine for adults. Novavax developed it to fight the original variant of COVID-19, but the company says it also works against BA.5. That's America's dominant variant right now. NBC senior medical correspondent John Torres joins us now with more. Dr. Torres, tell us a little bit more about RSV, what it is and what it does.
And good evening, Joshua. And RSV, like you mentioned, is a very common respiratory virus. Children mostly get it before the age of 2. Most children will have been infected. And for the vast majority of them, it's just that. It's cold-like symptoms. On top of that, also, adults can get it as well. And what we're seeing is the ends of the spectrum of ages. 5 and below and 65 and above are the ones that seem to be most affected at this point. And they're the ones that tend to get hospitalized and unfortunately can die from this as well every year. Now, the issue being, what you mentioned, is that this is starting earlier than usual. On top of that, our flu season is starting earlier than usual. And yes, we still have COVID as well. And so this kind of a triple effect going on is affecting people, but it's also affecting the hospitals themselves. And like you can see right there, there with older adults 65 and above, 177,000 hospitalizations, 14,000 deaths. With children, 58,000 hospitalizations, 1 to 300 deaths. That's every year. We don't expect this year to be any different as far as those numbers, but it is starting earlier, and we haven't reached the peak yet.
And forgive me, Dr. Torres, I know we're dealing with a bit of a delay. I may have forgotten to pay my Xfinity bill. But we'll do the best we can with the connection that we have. At what point should parents consider taking their kids to the hospital for RSV, especially because there is so much going around right now? How do parents even know if this could be something more serious for their little kids?
And Joshua, the biggest thing to realize is that when you get RSV, for most people, it's going to be a common infection, but it can be divided into two different groups. We have mild symptoms and we have serious symptoms. The mild symptoms are cold-like symptoms. They're basically having a sneeze, having a cough, a fever, a running nose, not feeling very well. But then you switch to the serious symptoms, and these are the ones that parents really need to look out for. And for older children, it's going to be difficulty breathing, wheezing. Early younger children, you could have what we call retractions, which you can see their ribs when they're breathing because they're working really hard. And for especially young children, it could be simply a decrease in appetite, decrease in activity, them not being normal. And what I tell parents all the time is, you know your child. If you're worried about your child, particularly right now that we know this is happening, take them to see somebody because you want to be extra careful right now.
Talk about the confluence of flu, COVID, and RSV. I'm sure we've had other seasons where we've dealt with flu and RSV side by side. Now we're dealing with COVID along with these other two, but we also have more vaccine options as well as the newly tailored boosters that are aimed at our most common variants. So is this good news overall that we should be able to minimize the overall damage if we do our best to protect from flu and COVID? Or are these really kind of three separate problems that we have to deal with in separate ways?
Now, one thing to realize is that these are three separate problems. You have flu, you have COVID, you have RSV. They're all hitting at the same time. But you also have to realize that these things can cause essentially your immune system to be a bit compromised and for the other virus to move in and take advantage of that. And viruses do that. They're very advantageous when somebody's immune system is weak to move in. And so it's rare for somebody to get two of these together. It's even more rare for them to get all three together. But since these are out there, we need to protect each other and especially our children from all of these. Now, luckily, like you mentioned, Novavax is getting this new booster shot out there. We're also getting booster shots from other ones for people to get them. But the important thing is that they get these booster shots, Joshua, and that's important to get them right now before we head into the season where we think COVID is going to increase in numbers again.
Before I let you go, this fall and winter, we have to deal with colds, common colds, flu. Some people are prone to bronchitis or pneumonia. We've got COVID. We've got RSV. I'm sure it can be very dizzying right now. I was out sick last week, and now that I'm seeing this story, I'm thinking, did I have RSV instead of a cold or maybe a sinus infection? I think it can all be a little maddening for the average person thinking about all the possible things that could make you sick. What would you recommend to people who are just feeling a little overwhelmed right now at having to become amateur virologists as we just try to make our way through the day?
And Joshua, that's been going on for the last 2.5 years. We've all become amateur epidemiologists, amateur virologists, trying to get a handle on this. Well, right now, particularly concerning, like you mentioned, are these three different viruses. And yes, you were sick last week. It could have very easily been a common cold, which is usually a rhinovirus. It could have been RSV. It could have been a variety of things. But the commonality behind all this is we need to keep that mindset of, if we're sick, we need to stay home. We need to protect other people. It's okay to still wear that mask and put that on if you're out and about and you're concerned about it, or particularly if you even have mild symptoms, then you go out to protect other people. And when it comes to RSV in particular, it's a very contagious virus. So the things we've been talking about, avoid close contact with sick people. If you're sick, stay home. Wash your hands often, especially before you touch your face. These are very important things to keep not just RSV at bay, but also COVID, the flu, the cold, the things that we've had for years and years. but importantly right now with RSV, particularly with the young children, and that's part of the problem, is we know there's an extra reservoir of children that have not gotten sick the last couple of years because of the lockdowns and the masking and social distancing, and now they're all out there, which almost doubles the number of children that potentially could get sick, which means it doubles the number of children that could be spreading it to other children as well. So we have to be extra careful, extra vigilant right now, and make sure we keep each other healthy, Joshua.
Yeah, I hear that. At least there is a number of things we can do. That is at least encouraging. Thank you, Doctor. That's NBC Senior Medical Correspondent Dr. John Torres with the latest. We'll get to some of today's other top stories in just a moment, including a verdict in the Kevin Spacey sexual assault trial, new comments from Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and the wildfire smoke that's polluting the Pacific Northwest. Tonight's headlines begin with Kevin Spacey. Today, a New York jury reached a verdict in the sexual abuse trial against him. It ruled in his favor. Mr. Spacey faced charges for allegedly committing battery against actor Anthony Rapp. He's best known from the musical Rent and the sci-fi series Star Trek Discovery. The jury ruled that Mr. Rapp's attorneys had not proven their case. They deliberated this afternoon for less than 90 minutes. A statement from Kevin Spacey's attorney said justice was done and thanked the jury for reaching a verdict, quote, based on evidence and not rumor or social media, unquote. Anthony Rapp filed this civil lawsuit in 2020. He made 3 claims: assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He accused Kevin Spacey of climbing on top of him at a party in the 80s. At that time, Kevin Spacey was 26 and Anthony Rapp was 14. A statement from Rapp also thanked the jury. It adds that the lawsuit was part of a, quote, larger movement to stand up against all forms of sexual violence, unquote. The U.S. says it has new evidence that Iran sent troops to Ukraine to help Russians use Iranian drones. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the Iranians offered technical support. That helped Russia use the drones to deadlier effect. Those drone attacks have indeed been deadly and destructive. Today, Ukraine saw widespread power outages, up to 4 hours in some areas. President Zelensky said that up to 30% of power stations have been knocked out. NBC's Cal Perry is in Kyiv with more.
New data in from the government now showing over 325 either drones or rockets fired into Ukraine since October the 10th, giving you an idea of how Russia continues to try to send waves of both rockets and drones to overwhelm this country's air defense system. And it has been a deadly 10 days. Schools have been canceled. There were air sirens over the course of what is this new air campaign to try to target the energy infrastructure here across the country. According to the president, more than a third of the energy infrastructure has been destroyed, which means this is now a city, a capital city, faced with rolling blackouts. Depending on where you live, you will take a 4-hour blackout per day, though the governor is encouraging all residents, as he said, to turn off their electronic devices in an attempt to save power.
That was NBC's Cal Perry reporting from Kyiv. America's red-hot housing market seems to be cooling off. The reason? Rising mortgage rates. Sales of existing homes fell last month to a 10-year low. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
From the for sale sign in front yards nationwide, further evidence that red-hot inflation may be putting a chill over the economy. Home sales in September fell to a 10-year low, down nearly 24% from a year ago. A fast slowdown with the Federal Reserve aggressively hiking rates to combat runaway inflation. A new loan on a 30-year mortgage now averages nearly 7.4%, a 22-year high and more than double where rates were a year ago, pricing many families out of their dream homes. In Arkansas, single mom Valerie Williams just bought her first home, but the higher mortgage rate is cutting into the family budget.
It was a major adjustment from what I originally wanted and could afford to what I had to get just to make ends meet and still have a roof over my head.
Higher rates are also blamed for cooling new home construction, down 8.1% from a year ago. Despite the slowdown in buying, there are fewer homes on the market. The tight supply has kept prices up. The average home now selling for nearly $385,000 in September.
we're definitely in a housing recession. There's tons of headwind, but there's also a tremendous amount of pent-up demand.
And the Federal Reserve isn't done yet. It's expected to hike rates another 3/4 of a point in November and at least another 1/2 point in December. Higher rates and the slowdown have more CEOs warning that the new year could bring more economic pain.
That's NBC's Tom Costello in Washington. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor is speaking this evening in Chicago. Roosevelt University is presenting her a Lifetime Service Award. Justice Sotomayor quickly made her way into the crowd to take questions. She talked about her career, her hopes for the future, and the significance of 4 justices being women.
Because we're women, we don't all think the same. We don't all vote the same. But it does have, I think, an impact, as Justice Ginsburg recognized, in the quality of the conversation. It makes it less adversarial in some ways and more collegial. And I think that having 4 women now, it will have an impact.
Clearly, the audio in the audience was just a little bit far away, but in case you couldn't quite hear it, she said she thinks having 4 women on the court makes the conversation less adversarial and more collegial, and says she thinks having 4 women will indeed have an impact on the court. Tonight, the Pacific Northwest is dealing with terrible air quality, so bad that Seattle and Portland, Oregon have some of the highest pollution levels in the world right now. That's according to IQ Air, a company that measures air quality across the globe. There you see the top 3 worst in the world, right up there with Beijing. Now, the pollution in the Pacific Northwest is coming from a series of wildfires. The Bolt Creek fire has blazed for more than a month now. It's burned nearly 15,000 acres east of Seattle. At last check, it was about 2/5 contained. Near Portland, the Nakief Creek fire has burned nearly 2,000 acres. It is just over 1/5 contained. The dirty air forced a number of sporting events to be called off or delayed. The Puget Sound Clean Air Agency is warning residents to stay indoors if they can, but thankfully relief may be on the way. Forecasters are expecting rain in the area tomorrow and Saturday. Coming up, Haiti needs help. A network of gangs is exploiting Haiti's political vacuum, and now it's calling for international help. We'll explain just ahead. Stay close. Haiti is asking for international help with a threat to the lives of its people. Gangs. Since last month, a number of gangs have blockaded a vital fuel terminal. That is keeping resources from everyday Haitians and making a dire situation even worse. This week, the UN Security Council delayed resolutions to intervene. One resolution would sanction a number of people, including the man leading these gangs. The other would authorize an international security force on the ground. It's unclear when the Security Council could vote on these measures. Let's discuss it with Jacqueline Charles. She is a veteran correspondent for the Miami Herald covering the Caribbean, and my former colleague at the Herald. No one I would rather talk to about this situation. Jackie, how is the situation in Haiti on the ground right now? Is there any sign that any help is coming, or are things kind of as dire as they've been for the last month or so?
Well, that's the question everybody's asking me. When is help coming? I mean, things are really dire. We're now in the week 6 of this blockade. We have a cholera epidemic. The Dominican Republic, in fact, today confirmed their first case of cholera, which is a Haitian woman who crossed the border. We have the cholera has also been found in the prison system. And while there's some fuel available on the black market, it's starting to sell for $13, $23 in the capital, $40 outside. The reality is that we still don't have full fuel flowing freely, and we don't have drinking water. These are things that are becoming very scarce. And we are with a very dire humanitarian crisis.
Tell us more about this fuel terminal that is being blocked and the gangs who are blocking it. Who are they and what do they want?
So this gang is a very powerful gang alliance known as the G9. And it's not just the fuel terminal, but it's all of the ports. So could you imagine that you have hundreds of containers with food that you have not been able to clear to come out. So when you go into the grocery store, shelves are bare. In some parts of Haiti, you can't even find meat or just basic staples. So this is a country that was already food prices rising to 50%, in fact. A country where the majority of people live on less than $2 a day. So what we're seeing in a country that already has, endemic poverty, things are just getting worse. And this gang, by blocking the fuel, by blocking roads, by blocking all of the terminals, they're really bringing this country to its knees.
There's a major figure in this who was one of the targets of these proposed sanctions, a man named Jimmy Cherizier, a former police officer in Haiti who's kind of, I don't want to describe him as larger than he is, but it seems like he's sort of the linchpin, kind of the mastermind who's pulled a lot of these criminal gangs together. Tell us more about him and what he wants in all this.
Well, Jimmy Cherizier, is very well known. As some will tell you that he's probably the most popular politician, quote unquote, today in Haiti. I mean, he's basically been demanding the resignation of interim Prime Minister Ariel Henry. He's been implicated in several massacres, including one in 2018 in a neighborhood of Port-au-Prince where over 400 homes were destroyed and 71 people at least were killed. And the United States has sanctioned him. So that's the other thing, the UN is talking about sanctions, but he's already been sanctioned by the United States, and he continues to carry out, his blockades and do a number of other things. So there are questions how successful those blockades are going to be, and his gang alliance is among several hundred gangs that exist in Haiti today. When you look at a map of Port-au-Prince, what you find is that the green space, the safe space, is increasingly shrinking in places that did not have issues with gang violence or kidnappings or even sexual violence, as the UN is reporting at the hands of gangs. Now they are all experiencing this.
So what is it that Jimmy Cherizier wants? Does he want to be the new president of Haiti? Does he want to kind of rule blocks of territory outside the government? Like, what's his end game?
Well, we've seen proposals where they're talking about they want a seat at the table, they want to negotiate, they want amnesty from any sanctions. He wants the resignation of the prime minister. He wants a lot of things. He talks about the fact that he wants to have a country where healthcare is available, and and Haitians are not living in poverty, but yet this very act of blockading, of no fuel, you've seen cholera has come back after more than 3 years. This resurgence is being linked to gang clashes in July in City Soleil that his gang alliance was involved in. So, it's very interesting when you hear him. I mean, he will send out videos. He will give you to let you know that, hey, I am sending video this field, the firing barricades, where they set tires on fire. So they trailers overturned them in the road. So police, they've tried to get access and they just cannot get access. They've even dug trenches in the road. And this has been going on now for almost 6 weeks.
I know I got to let you go in a minute, but with regard to the UN and what the rest of the world could do, the U.S. State Department announced today that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, had a conversation with Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the UN. Haiti came up in the conversation, but it's unclear if those resolutions are going to move forward any faster. From your perspective, looking at everything Haiti's been through in the last number of years, what would make the biggest difference right now, the biggest difference as quickly as possible in the situation on the ground in Haiti today, if anything could be done by the rest of the world?
That is such a controversial, question, because every Haitian has an opinion. I get caught up in politics. And what I've said to people is, let's think about, the mother who is living in Cincinnati, here in Brooklyn, where cholera was just detected 2 weeks ago. She doesn't have access to drinking water. She doesn't have access to electricity. She can't leave without, facing gangs where she could probably be shot, killed, or raped. She doesn't have access to food. What do you tell this woman? Where is her hope? How does she get out of it? The police have not been able to go in there. The water trucks haven't been able to go. They've stopped production because there is no fuel. That is what Haiti is facing today. And this isn't a problem that started overnight. This is a problem that has been in the making now, this descent into anarchy for a while. This is a country where the president was assassinated last year. His murderers still have not been brought to justice. There is not a functioning parliament. There's not a functioning judiciary. In fact, gangs took over the main courthouse. They burned another one, and this is a country where you have groups of civil society saying, hey, it's time to let us take over, let us lead a transition to this country. But the one thing we haven't really heard is about institution building, because at the end of the day, I will argue that Haiti needs institutions, so that it doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter what sort of chaos you have. You have institutions that can fight back. And today they are either non-existent or they're just weak.
Jacqueline Charles, Caribbean correspondent for the Miami Herald. It's always good to see you. Thanks for making time for us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
A campaign to support LGBTQ kids has a lot of people wearing purple. Today is Spirit Day, led by the advocacy group GLAAD, and today's politics make this campaign very relevant. We'll get into that before we go. Today, a number of people wore purple in honor of LGBTQ kids. It's Spirit Day, an annual event led by the advocacy group GLAAD. Spirit Day is about visibility and support. It began in 2010. By some accounts, it's now the world's largest LGBTQ anti-bullying campaign. GLAAD's president and CEO, Sarah Kate Ellis, recently wrote about some of the challenges these kids face today. Quote, instead of joining the rising tide of acceptance and bipartisan support for LGBTQ people, members of Congress trying to score political points propose a bill filled with misinformation with the futile attempt of smearing and erasing who we are, unquote. Ms. Ellis is referring to the Stop the Sexualization of Children Act. Congressional Republicans introduced it on Tuesday. It's a kind of national version of a law in Florida, the one that critics call the Don't Say Gay bill. The bill in Congress would block federal funds to, quote, develop, implement, facilitate, or fund any sexually oriented program, event, or literature for children under the age of 10, unquote. This could affect all kinds of public institutions, including libraries, federally funded schools, military bases, and hospitals. Joining us now is Toni Morrison, GLAAD's Senior Director of Communications. Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Joshua, thanks for having me tonight, and happy Spirit Day.
Tell us more about what Spirit Day means for you this year. Is it mostly about these items of legislation and some of the politics that we've been looking at, or are there other things that you're also focused on?
I mean, Spirit Day has been an enormous day, and I think that every year it gets bigger and more important. I think that legislation, like you just talked about, underscores this kind of work. I will say real quick as we start this conversation, just a big shout out to our NBC family who really showed up and showed out for LGBT youth. Everybody from NBC News, CNBC Today, NBC News Now. Thank you for being part of this. And it's not a campaign as much as it is creating representation, visibility, a possibility model for LGBT youth specifically, and to tell them that they have value no matter who they are or who they explore themselves to be. I think that just underscores how important this kind of conversation is right now in our country.
What is your sense of how LGBTQ kids are doing across the country these days, especially with these items of legislation that we referred to, some of the controversy and conflicts that have happened around LGBTQ community events like drag brunches or drag story time that have been intercepted by protest groups and so forth? What is your sense of how these kids are doing today?
Well, I have to say, it's our elected officials that are making it really hard to be a kid right now in America. And it's pretty ironic that there's 32 elected officials who are bullying LGBT youth on Spirit Day. That's number one. Number two, the introduction of a bill like this we're seeing is really embarrassing and disgusting. It's an anti-American attack on American families, plain and simple, by a party of hate and fear. And really, it's what it is, Joshua, is a wake-up call for voters. Voters are not dumb. They know what's up. And it's a wake-up call that these elected officials are not doing their jobs to represent all American families. And instead of finding solutions, they're creating problems and attempting to solve issues that simply don't exist. Plain and simple.
Talk to some of the parents, including perhaps parents who supported measures like the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida and other measures. Talk to parents who are saying, I have nothing against LGBTQ kids, but when it comes to teaching my kids about sexuality, sex, gender, and so on, I want to be in more control of that as a parent. I want more oversight of how that's handled in schools and in the public sphere. And there are certain things I just don't think are appropriate to expose my kids to in public environments like public schools. Nothing against the kids. I'm just trying to be a proactive parent. What would you say to them?
Of course. I mean, parents should be proactive and be part of their kids' education. You know, that's what are PTAs for? What are parent-teacher conferences for? Even sporting events. Like, we have this culture of fear around how we are indoctrinating our children. No educator is out there trying to sexualize children, number one. No teacher is out there creating curriculum to indoctrinate children into anything. The indoctrination, if anything, that's happening is an indoctrination of fear of the American people, which, again, I will say is anti-American. And again, it really puzzles me how elected officials, instead of finding solutions in their communities, finding solutions with families, are creating restrictions. They are erasing LGBT people and families. So, you know, I understand there's concern about what parents' children, what students are being taught in schools, but there are better ways to involve more experiences, more broader families into this conversation than simply saying no and pushing people away.
Very briefly, before I have to let you go, you wrote an essay last year about talking about being diagnosed as HIV positive and some of the challenges that come along with that. Very briefly, before I have to let you go, zooming out a bit, how are we doing in terms of acceptance and visibility for the LGBTQ community more broadly? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Having a wait and see attitude? How do you see it more broadly before we go?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is part of the work that I'm doing at GLAAD, and coming over to GLAAD is advancing acceptance for our community. But it really is about sharing our experiences and being bold and being able to say that we exist. Here's my experience. It may not be yours. And for the other party to say, hey, let me listen. So it's on to us just to choose a little kindness over pushing people away simply because they're different or their experience is something we've never heard of or encountered. And I think that will really level the playing field for a better America, for people to really take the time to understand each other. And that's what Spirit Day is all about. And that's what GLAAD's work is all about overall as well.
Toni Morrison of GLAAD, good to have you with us. Thanks very much.
Joshua, appreciate you. Happy Spirit Day. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you for making time for us. We would love your thoughts on Spirit Day or the future of the UK or any of the topics we discussed tonight. We're at NBC Now Tonight on social media. You can leave us a brief but brilliant voicemail, 888-575-2NBC. That's 888-575-2622, or email us nowtonight@nbcnews.com. Until we meet again, I'm Joshua Johnson. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.